Hello and welcome to the morning edition of the CBB Super Show. I'm your host, Walter Waddell, aka Dub Deuce 85, your niche sports connoisseur, coming to you live on the FTN network. You know it, you love it. Let's do it. We are in the Elite Eight. Eight have become six, six will become four, and by the end of this day, we will have our final four set. This tournament has flown by very, very fast. A lack of drama early, sure, but you know what? We've had some really good, excellent elite, some of the best Sweet 16 games and Elite 8 games we've already seen. Two more great ones today. 2-game slate. We're going to break it down. If you're new to the show, what we do here, we go game by game. Be quick today, of course, with the 2 games. Break it down in full. We'll talk about some projected starting lineups, some injury designations. We'll look at the team view projection sheet that is done and ready to go. And we'll talk about a core, any best bets, all of that stuff. How you can support me, obviously by tuning in and watching, but if you could please find it in your heart, if you're watching on X/Twitter, jump over to YouTube, hit the like button. That helps a lot. Any retweets, reposts, comments, questions, and concerns all help. Those interactions in the algorithm-based world that we live in, they help a tremendous amount. So I do appreciate that very much. You guys have shown me some love when I go on late at night, midday, early morning, doesn't matter. You guys are always here showing up and showing out. And I'm helping you to the best of my ability to get those green screens and window trips. That is what we're about here. Before we get into the breakdown, we do have a little bit of business to take care of. Yesterday, there was a ridiculously just wild game, right? Florida versus Texas Tech. Texas Tech did a heck of a job. Like, they were in control late. It really seemed like, I don't know, Texas Tech was going to knock off the Gators and send my futures to the showers. Rather, it goes to the window instead of the showers, but that was what was about to happen, right? With that being said, I made a comment that, because it seemed like they weren't going to get back. Like, they were down 12 with just 3 or 4 minutes left. And I made a comment to a respectable DM group that I'm in that if Florida were to win this game, because it's not going to happen, I would shave my beard. All of the people in that DM kind of took it as like, yeah, whatever, you're just talking. But if you know me, you know that I am a man of my word. And I believe in karma. I'm very superstitious, probably the most superstitious person in the entire industry. I would bet that I did, like my wife, she's into crystals and sage burning and stuff. And I'm not afraid to tell you that I've taken part in that stuff, man. At the beginning of the month, we do the cinnamon throwing in the inside. Like, I'm superstitious. I got tiger's eyes. I got all that stuff. So when I say I'm going to do something, I'm not one of those people. Like, I would never say that I'm going to eat dog waste like that Florida State fan, like what was a year or two ago said, and then hid. Number one, I would never say anything like that because I don't want to eat dog waste. However, if I said I was going to do it and something happened, I would have to do it because I'm a man of my word. So making that comment in DMs, I felt like, okay, I got to say it to everyone, right? This is something that, I'm just going to, I think they cut it to like 6 to 9 somewhere, and there was like a couple of minutes left. And they were going to the free throw line, as in JT Toppin was going to the free throw line, and he was bricking free throws all night. But it still seemed pretty unlikely that Florida was going to be able to win that game. Especially when Texas Tech just had the second biggest Sweet 16 comeback of all time, right? So I go ahead and post it to Twitter because I didn't really think that Florida was going to win. And pre-ban, when I say pre-ban, like pre-2017, 2018, when CBB, DFS, and all that was taken away because of rules, laws, all that, we ran like gods. If you were with me pre-ban, like we had some of the craziest powers in the world. We could tilt the player from like 4 at halftime to 40 by the end of the game. One of the ones that sticks out to me is Northwestern's Derek Pardon. Had him in Mania and a few other things. He had legitimately 10 fantasy points at half. We did our thing, and then he ended with a 42. And that kind of stuff happened regularly. Powers-wise, hasn't been as good post-ban. We've been really good, don't get me wrong, the information and everything, but our tilting powers have been kind of moderate at best. So I didn't think that I would be able to channel pre-2017 Walter Waddell powers by saying that if Florida wins, I'll shave my beard. I like my beard. You know, I've had this for a few years now, and I wouldn't want to shave my beard just for no reason. Like I plan on keeping it for a long time. Um, but wouldn't you know it, Walter Clayton had other ideas about that, and he hit like 3 threes in the last couple of minutes. Passes on an open layup, takes a fall away three and hits it. Toppin, of course, misses free throws. Darian Williams, of course, misses free throws. Suddenly, the Florida Gators have won. And the situation we're looking at here is if I was not a man of my word and I didn't cut my beard, you know, I would be sentenced to what happened with the Florida State curse, to lose everything, all bets, you know, have poor luck, just be miserable at all times. So because I am a man of my word, the beard has to go. And I was going to go on last night, but I thought, why don't I just sleep on it? I'll wake up, I'll have some coffee. We'll do our breakdown. But before we start that breakdown, we're going to have to shave the beard. So here we are. Somebody asked for a before and after, so let's do this. Please hit the like button. Show some support, man. If Florida doesn't win the title now, it'll feel like a little bit of a waste. But you know what? It's got to happen here. So there's the before that somebody asked for. Okay. We're doing this. We're doing this. We're doing this. We're doing this. We are doing this, guys. We are doing this. Let's go. A little hard to do with the in the camera here with the mirror. It's gonna be a little patchy here for the show, but you know, it's okay. It's okay. Dedication, you know, integrity, honor, you know. Oh man, I haven't seen my chin in years. Okay. Okay. That's whoa, look at that mustache. That's pretty dope, bro. That's pretty dope. That's a pretty dope mustache there, right there. I kind of want to rock the mustache actually. Um I'm glad you're from Florida. I hope that you appreciate what I'm doing here. If I weren't to do this, even though I'm not a Gators, you know, like I'm not a Gators fan, but I am this year, especially with I have a huge future on them, and so I'm definitely rooting for them to win. Them or Michigan State, actually. So the people say I should keep the mustache, at least for the show, huh? Let's do that. I'm all patchy here, but let's man. This is hilarious. My son is going to get a kick out of this. All right, yeah, let's do it. Let's just rock this. I'll clean it up after. I'm going to the corner screen anyways. Let's do a after here. I'll do a true after once I go upstairs and take a shower and everything. But yeah, we'll rock the mustache for the show. Maybe it'll be a good look mustache. And I only do that because you guys said it's okay. If you guys didn't say it was okay, I would have to get rid of it. So don't shave the stash. You just said beard. It's pretty dope, actually. I look like I'm from I was gonna say I look like I'm from the Wild Wild West, and Rose agrees. Oh man, this is awesome. Your mustache like mine. We had that movie mustache. Hell yeah, let's go. And Jason always shows up, says keep the stash, man. All right, let's do it. Let's do it. Let's keep it up. I'm patchy all over. That's okay. That's okay. All right, let's get the projections up here. This is funny. People didn't think I was gonna do this, but you know what? If you've known me over the years, I'm gonna do what I said I'm gonna do. All right. So let's put that in here. I only do this because I love you guys. I love this community. I love this sport. And in case there was anybody who didn't think that I was a man of my word for whatever reason, if you didn't know, now you know. I will always do what I say, and that is something that I pride myself on. So appreciate everybody who tuned in here. Your bet just said beard. Okay. Yeah, you're right. You're right. And Forklift Jeremy says faux hawk of hair now. Okay, the faux hawk. I don't know if I have enough hair to do that, but I'll definitely give it a shot. I'll have the missus work on that. All right, appreciate it. I'm glad we got glad we had some support here and that you guys were into this. Again, people didn't think it was going to happen. But you know what? We gotta honor our word here. And if it would have been the Washington Huskies or something like that, I would have just shaved the whole head as well, which isn't as big a deal. But I would definitely make some sacrifices. All right, let's get into this slate breakdown here. We have an earlier lock in a couple of hours here. Start with the first game on the slate, the real business that you came here for. But again, rock the stash. Tennessee versus Houston. This is a total of 124.5. Houston, a 2.5-point favorite. Now, the slate yesterday ended up being, like, for a two-gamer, kind of high scoring, right? Because there was a lot of underpriced players. Today, it seems like DK definitely took some time to really price this slate out. And they've priced up guys that we've been getting really, really cheap. Cohen Carr, Denver Jones, Chaney Johnson, all of those guys up over 5K now. But we have to look at this slate a little bit differently. We have to think of value as that 5 to 6K range because everybody's priced up so high. And you're going to see in the projections, there's not a ton of guys projecting super well. So we're going to have to really, I think, shoot for a score of around 200 to 210 to really kind of get over the hump. And I think min cash line might even be lower than that. Like we're talking 175, 180 may get the job done. We typically like these lower scoring slates. They play to our benefit for sure. But pricing is definitely hard. And I think we may have to take a really cheap guy and possibly sacrifice like a 1x score in order to get that floor of some of the other guys. You know, perhaps is the guy Ziegler, perhaps a Janai Broom, one of those players. Houston really owes us. We got the great game from Milos Uzan the other day, but some of the other options, Juwan Roberts, JoJo Tugler, LJ Cryer, some of those guys really have to step up here. So will be a low-scoring game. Defenses are going to be the name of the game here. Starting with Tennessee, you see Zakai Ziegler. After the masterful game that he just had, priced up to 8-7, we did see guards pretty much hurt Houston in a way that I didn't think was possible in the last couple of games. Shout out to Purdue. They had a really solid game plan. The first half to really, kind of just harass and TKR and take him out of the game. And they really did that in the first half. But they didn't bank on Fletcher Lawyer, who always plays well near his home, the Purdue home, right? Always awful on the road. And I don't think they banked on Fletcher Lawyer hitting a bunch of threes early, making shots, hitting his jumpers, and really playing well. And that forced their defense to kind of extend. And once they did that, TKR started taking over. They did a great job. Braden Smith hasn't shot particularly well this entire tournament. And they did a really good job on him offensively, but he had 15 assists. So point guard wise, Zakai Ziegler is going to have an opportunity for a double-double here because he's going to get himself to the foul line, sure. He's going to hit some shots, sure. But he's just going to rack up those assists. And I do think guys like Felix Okpara and Igor Milicic are going to get some really easy basket opportunities here. But it's not going to be easy overall. So Ziegler is definitely the one you want to look at if you're going to a Tennessee player, but he's going to cost you, right? Excuse me, at 8-7. I really like as a GBP look Jordan Gainey. I've been talking about Gainey all tournament long. Chaz Lanier does not appear to be a very good play today because he's so reliant on the jumper. You may counter and say, well, so is Gainey. Yes, but he's a little bit cheaper. And coming off on the second unit, he tends to get the weaker part of the defense. Lanier is going to get, a lot of attention there. And they're going to be trying to run him off the line. They don't want to let him do what Fletcher Lawyer did. But I do think Jordan Gainey has a chance to do what Fletcher Lawyer did. Gainey's point prop is something I'm especially looking at. We haven't projected right around 9 to 10, but I do like him. I think what I saw, it was 10.5 in most places. I do like the over for that one. And then guys like Felix Okpara, I think, are going to grab a lot of rebounds. Whether or not he can stay on the floor beyond a couple of minutes with foul trouble is another story. But I do like Gainey as the GBP look. And if you have to spend your money somewhere and you're not too sure about Janai Broom, Zakai Ziegler is that obvious option there. And I do think a double-double is in order for him. See, we haven't projected it right about 3.8x, which on this slate might as well be like 5x because there's going to be so few people scoring. Jason asked me under 17.5 points on Lanier today. That is one prop that I'm definitely on pretty heavy, honestly. We have him right around 15.3, and he's going to get volume up, so it's always scary taking it under on Chaz, but they're not going to be good, clean looks. Like if they let him do what Fletcher Lawyer did, it's going to be a real problem. So I do like the under 17.5 for him. I just think they're going to game plan this a little bit differently. TKR, there's no TKR, in the Tennessee front court. So they can't allow Lanier to just operate like Fletcher Lawyer. So I think we see a little bit of a different game plan here. And if Akpara and Milicic are the ones that beat them, I think they're okay with that. But let's be honest, Igor's offense hasn't been there lately. And Akpara is more of 2 to 5 feet. If he doesn't get it there, he's not really much of a threat either. So I think that Lanier is going to have a really hard time here. So yes, definitely on the under there for Lanier. I think the line's too short. Houston by 5 or more. Yeah, I'm a little bit nervous about the spreads. Like I know it's not as fun, but I've just been kind of messing with money lines the last day or two because these spreads, man, they are just so close. Like I thought Houston minus 8.5 was just some mortal luck against Purdue. Shout out to Purdue. They did very well. Certainly would think that Houston can win by 3 or more against Tennessee, especially when the Vols offense goes cold. They were really good last game, and against the Houston, I don't think that we're going to see that same level of success. So if I were to, pick one way or another on this one, I do think Houston minus 2.5 would be the bet. Right now, I'm very close to taking the under, even at 124.5, but I do like Houston to win outright. However, I have picked in my bracket Tennessee to win this game originally, and I don't like to change midway through. I just kind of stick with it. But I have kind of morphed more towards Houston. Funny enough, the media, Field of 68, CBS, with Matt Norlander and Gary Parrish, who I like their podcast as well. They've flipped from Houston to Tennessee. So everyone else has flipped towards the Vols. But I selfishly need Houston for the RotoWire League because I have 3 Houston players left. And just, at this point, I'm kind of pot committed to seeing if we can get all the 1 seeds into the 4, although I do like Michigan State today. So we'll see. But yes, I do agree with you about Houston. I think they are the right side. On the Houston side, we still have some cheapish options here. Uzan had the huge game, so his price is up to 7.7. A little uncomfortable there. LJ Cryer also at 7.1. We saw Cryer, man. He really struggled with his shot. And we're seeing that a lot throughout the tournament. We saw it last night with Mark Sears. Granted, Duke's defense is on another level, but we're seeing shooting reliant players have at least one horrific game in this tournament. Cryer just had his. They're going to need him to step up. One thing that is a bit alarming is the fact that Milos and LJ just don't seem to ever go off together. So one build that could potentially win you the large field today would be playing both of them because nobody's going to do it. I think most people are going to notice if Cryer goes off, Milos doesn't really. Milos will get his assists. But they're just not going to score together very often. And Milos, he was red hot. I mean, what do you have, a career high 5 or 6 threes last game? The game before that, Cryer had 28 real by halftime. I'm obviously embellishing that, but he had a lot. And I think that there is a chance that both of these players go off together. But the more common build will be one of those guards with Juwan Roberts. And the chalkiest build of all will be a Manny Sharp because he's under 6K. He took a lot of shot volume last time out. He does one of the few players on the slate that projects over 4X for us. And I think at this point, he's pretty well dialed in, as all the starters are, except for maybe JoJo Tugler, to 32-plus minutes. We did get the news that Milik Wilson will be available today. Available can be very bland and open for interpretation. Does that mean he's going to play the 18-20 off the bench like we normally see? Does that mean he's going to play a Dutiero 5 minutes? That remains to be seen. I put him in at about 10 minutes for now, and that might be on the low side. He took a shot in that Purdue game, rung his bell a little bit. I do think he plays probably closer to 15, but I don't think it's going to be enough for us to really care at 4-4. I just don't know that he'll matter enough and end up in a spot where he's cheap enough for us to utilize him. If you're going to go with a value piece on Houston, you're better off just taking that full punt with Terry Arsenault at 3-3, who we know can get it done. The minutes haven't been there, and Sampson hasn't quite trusted him as much, but Arsenault has an offensive skill set. And if Houston is stagnant early on and Arsenault comes in and hits a jumper, a layup, a steal, a triple, whatever, he'll get those extended minutes. And at near min price on this slate, I think you can afford to take a 1 or 2X number from him and still end up profitable on this slate. So if you're going with a Houston value, I think the right answer would be Arsenault, but be prepared for him to put up a 5, right? I think the Houston mini stack will be relatively unowned. So if you're taking Sharp Roberts together, while I think it's the chalkiest of the two of the stacks on this team, I think it's still going to be relatively low, under 30%. And then if you extend out and go like a Roberts Uzan, a Roberts Cryer, you're going to be way different than the rest of the field here. Tennessee's defense has kind of stepped up too, right? They're already pretty good, but we're seeing some holes in their defense here lately going into the tournament game here. Let's pull up They took care of business against Kentucky, but we did see Lamont Butler. He got open for a ton of threes. Butler really shook off the injuries. He was very good, and they really did struggle with Amari Williams, especially offensively. Amari got a lot of open looks. They were so involved with trying to stop Otegawe that Amari had a lot of one-on-one coverage, and he was rebounding well. So that is why Juwan Roberts or JoJo Tugler do project fairly decently today. And I think Roberts is due a pretty big game. 2 games ago, he had a pretty big game, but I think you see Roberts really step up today. And I do like Roberts props over rebounds, over points on that. And then one of those 3-point shooters like Butler just had a game. My gut tells me it's going to be LJ Cryer. So potentially low-owned LJ Cryer there for the win. We got our Walter Clayton explosion game that we've been talking about. So maybe we'll get the LJ Cryer game. All right, moving on to the second game here. Here's my man Johnny. Says, I think Cryer bounces back just outside box out. Yep, I'm with you there. We've seen, not a lot of like analytical thought on this right here. It's more of a feel watching games, that kind of thing. But we've seen so many players who prior game, especially late here in the tournament, have a terrible shooting night and then come back and just absolutely assault the slate the next. So I do think he's a pretty good candidate. Kurt says, Big Walt, Kurt Jones. Hey man, what's up? I had a feeling I might see you today with the beard shave action that just went on and the stash here. You could appreciate a good stash, I know. And if you don't know Kurt, honestly, like People Magazine, #1 hottest man in the world. I'm not ashamed to say it. My brother Kurt, he is an actual stud in the industry. Good to see you, Kurt. I'm glad that you stopped by. All right, let's move on to the second game here. Michigan State versus Auburn. This is a total of 147.5, so over 20 points higher. So expect a lot of ownership here. And Auburn is a 4.5-point favorite. Now, I do love Michigan State. That one might have opened at 5.5, if memory serves correct. But I do like the plus 4.5 on Michigan State. Here is the thing with this game. Auburn, they took care of business, especially in the second half. And you can look at the stat line, because what I'm about to say to you, you're going to be like, what is he shaving the beard? Did his brain go away too? But Janai Broome didn't really have that great of a game against Michigan. And I know it's weird to say for a guy who scored 22 and had, 15, 16 rebounds. Yes, it's an impressive stat line, broke the slate. But if you watch that game closely, his offensive, like his post moves, they were discombobulated. He was all over the place. He was trying to be a foul merchant in a sense, drawing fouls. It wasn't always working for him, and he was throwing up some pretty weak stuff. What Michigan failed to do, and what even my son's third grade team back in the day could do better, was box out. And Broome was just getting a ton. He was going full Zach Randolph. And if you don't know what I mean by that, the full Zach Randolph experience, it's stat padding. The new age kids call it the Bryce Hopkins, but if you're in the 90s like me, it's definitely a Zebo. Randolph did a lot of intentional missing of bunnies if he knew he could get the rebound, and if he was close to a double-double, he was missing a layup to get that rebound to the double-double. Broome might not have been doing that intentionally, but that's what it looked like. So he was getting a lot of rebounds off of severely poor layup attempts, and Michigan just chose not to box out whatsoever. Danny Wolf, Vlad Golden, I don't know why they didn't box out. Maybe they're afraid of fouls, whatever. And then on the other side, you saw Danny Wolf at the three-point line, put it on the deck. He was taking Broome to the rack. Broome also didn't want to get into foul trouble, so he was oftentimes just allowing Wolf to cook him. And there was other times where Broome tried to D-up, and it wasn't happening for him. Another big man who showed that he could put on the deck the other day for Michigan State was Cohen Carr. So I don't love this matchup for Janai Broome, because here's the thing. Tom Izzo, his front court, his team, they're not going to lack effort ever. If they do, they're not going to play. Very simple. Izzo's an old school coach like that. So those rebounding opportunities aren't going to be there as much for Janai Broome. So I wanted to kind of dive in there a little bit and say that, yes, Broome had a big statistical game, but if you actually watch that game, what did he shoot? 9 for 22. It was okay. A lot of his rebounds were just, Kurt there could have boxed out Broome better. So I think he's going to struggle a little bit here more. We do have to pay for someone. And if you're in Survivor still, or you're in any single entry stuff, who are you really going to pay for if it's not Broome, right? You've got Ziegler, Chaz Lanier's a no, and then everybody else under 8K. So Broome will naturally just have a ton of ownership. And if you're running alt builds, a Broom fade definitely would make a lot of sense here, because I think Michigan State is going to give him some problems. And if he gets guys into foul trouble, that's no problem, right? Because they have an endless amount of front court options, whether that's Jackson Keeler, who does start and has shown that he can get it done offensively. Carson Cooper has really been playing well, and then Cohen Carr getting to start last game. Carr, it almost seems like borderline blasphemous to the basketball gods that Carr wasn't starting games earlier and wasn't playing more minutes. Saman Zappala didn't start last game, didn't play a single minute. I suspect he'll play some today, but at this point, that genie is not going back in the bottle. Carr is the starter and is going to play 30-plus minutes here, barring foul trouble. And then they still have Xavier Booker, who I really like. He's kind of, been out of the rotation here for a month or two, but I wouldn't surprise me if we saw a little Xavier Booker pop out here just to use his fouls. So there's a myriad of options here, and they're going to play tough. And Janai Broome, he's tough. Do not get me wrong. I'm not saying he doesn't, but we haven't seen him quite bothered as much. And in games where he was bothered in SEC play, we saw he had kind of a lackluster end to the season. That 70-65 loss in the SEC tournament against Tennessee, yes, he had 23 real, but a lot of that came at the foul line. He had just the 7 rebounds. They did a pretty nice job on him, and they did a great job on the guards as well. He was bothered a lot, especially going for rebounds. And even the game against Ole Miss, where Ole Miss nearly knocked Auburn off, Broome did end up with a big statistical output, 15 rebounds, but a lot of that came in the second half when Ole Miss was already getting into foul trouble and the effort, and they just were banged up, beat up, and kind of getting tired by then. We've seen a really solid effort from Creighton here. We saw a good first half effort from Alabama State. And overall, I just think that Michigan State here is live to win this game, and if nothing else, to at least cover. So you'll see on the projections there in Broome, he is over 4X because it is Janai Broome, but I do think there's a little bit of merit here for some alt builds to fade him. Let's see here. Johnny says, I think it's going to be out Akins and Carr. Might be Kurt and Razzle giving each other love. All right. So for me, this starts with Cohen Carr, obviously. I was actually surprised that once it was announced he was in the starting lineup, that he wasn't more owned. He was about 50% single entry, which is a lot for a 4-game slate. Don't get me wrong. But it just seemed like with his price and what he was going to do, he would be higher. Now that he's at 5-1, we can expect, a little bit more ownership because of the context of this slate. And then probably a lot for Carson Cooper, who's sitting there at 4-2. Carr is going to push towards 30 minutes if he doesn't get into foul trouble. And Cooper should. I have him tentatively placed at 21 minutes, but I think he could potentially play more as well, especially if Zappala is not going to be playing at all. Cooper and Carr are really heating up at the right time, and Izzo has a ton of trust in each, even more so than Jackson Keeler. So either one of them are in play. I kind of am hesitant to play both, sure. But I think it's certainly on the table. As far as the guards, Jeremy Fears is still a value at 5K. Turnover problem, sure, but in the second half, man, he looked really well, and he can rack up assists, especially if Jace Richardson and Jaden Akins are getting hot. All he has to do is kick it off to them. So still like Fears as a value piece. I think playing Fears with Carr is the move again, kind of like what it was last time. I know Fears put up, 16-17 last game. We certainly want more, but it's definitely okay, and we haven't projected about 20, so right on value point. I do think Trey Holloman is a bit of a sneakier look. His price is reduced slightly to 5.2. No one ever rosters Trey Holloman. He is the kind of Cassius Winston light, right? Not just because of the headband, but the way he plays, he can facilitate. He wasn't making his shots last game, but they're going to need him to here. Really like Holloman. I think if the field's going to go more towards Carr, obviously, and Jeremy Fears, for a couple hundred more, switching to Holloman, who's already had a 30-plus game here in an important game against New Mexico, has shown he can do so. I do like Holloman, and I think he's an all-format type of play. Even coming off of the bench, he's going to end up close to 28 to 29 minutes, and in the second half for crunch time, Izzo has a lot of trust in him as well, and he's a good free throw shooter to a degree. If it's going to be close, they're going to have him out there. Akins, I'm just really never on 6'3", like he's got to make his shots to go. And then Jace Richardson, it's 7.4. It's a okay price if you're not paying for Broome or Zakai. You simply have to roster Jace Richardson and as much 7K guys as you can. We saw He was really struggling against New Mexico, and he came back and just shot the lights out and made a ton of plays. And he's not just a scorer. A lot of people like to typecast him and put him in this spot where, oh, all he can do is score like LJ Cryer. If he's not scoring, he's not going to get there. He's grabbing steals. He's blocking shots. He's rebounding at a pretty high level. There's a lot Richardson can do. And you can see if you break down the projection here, which is just under 27 fantasy points, 15 points, 5 rebounds, 2 assists, a couple of threes here, a steal. Like, he can do all of that. And there's definitely upside for more. Now, I heard on CBS last night, they were saying, hey, if Michigan State's going to win, they're going to need a 30 piece from Jace Richardson. And everybody had probably. And then they started thinking, well, he could do that. Why is it so outlandish to think Jace won't score 30 here? He needs to. He probably will. And he's going to shoot a ton. I just don't know that Frankie Fiddler is really made for this moment. Great Omaha scorer. He bailed them out against New Mexico, but you saw he really struggled last round. How many minutes can you actually give Fiddler? Akins disappears too much. Fears is not the best shooter in the world. So between Holloman and Jace, like, those two guys are going to get buckets, and Jace especially so. So I think that he makes sense as obviously a high-level GPP look, but also if you can get him into your main. I know the projection isn't great, but this is one where I see him exceeding that and scoring 30-plus fantasy points with ease. And if you can score 30-plus real, then you're really in it, right? On the Auburn side, everybody, all of our usuals are pretty well priced up here. We got 5.9 on Denver Jones, who's been 4.7. Chaney Johnson is up over 5K, and my man Tahad Pettiford, his price continues to creep, but he's still not above 7K like he should be. So Pettiford at 6.5, he was just 22% on the last Auburn slate, which was a 4-gamer. Being that this is a 2-game slate, I think we'll see a little bit of elevated ownership, but still probably not as much as we should. That's simply because he doesn't start. The prices are up on everyone. But if you watch the last, 8 Auburn games, he's the closer. He's the one out there getting the free throws, hitting the shots. Like, I absolutely love the way Tahad Pettiford plays. He reminds me of like just a happy-go-lucky kid who's out on the playground, just hooping, right? So I really love the way Pettiford plays, and his behavior, his attitude is very infectious towards the rest of the team. This is going to be one of his toughest challenges yet, but that guy is not afraid of the moment. There's not a lot of freshmen you can really say that about. Obviously, Cooper Flagg, Con Knipple last night, but when you look at this, a guard, scoring dominant freshman guard at that, they kind of tend to wilt in these moments, especially now in the era of the transfer portal, NIL, where teams are very veteran heavy, if you will. Pettiford looks like he's been out there doing it for years. And I wouldn't be so sure that he's going to be a one and done yet, because his NIL valuation is already creeping towards $2 million. If Auburn makes it to the Final Four or wins the title, Pettiford is going to get more money to come back than he would as a late first-round pick. That's just my assessment there. So love Pettiford. I hope he's like 20% owned. I'm fine. I'll pay that. I would have been prepared to pay 7K for Tahad. He's just fantastic. Still like Chaney Johnson. Excuse me, Chad Baker, Mazzara, minutes were reduced to a degree. He's just kind of still a head case. He hasn't really done anything to, push them off kilter. You better believe Izzo is going to have his guys trying to get under Chad Baker Mazzara's skin. He did have some early foul issues, and he did only play about 25 minutes, and he wasn't that effective, and he did, end up with 4 fouls there in that 25. He's definitely a cheap price when you look at Pettiford compared to where Mazzara is now. And as the starter, I think we'll see some elevated ownership on Chad because he's 6K, and we know he can put up a big number, and he projects about 3.7x. But just be ready, because that blow up could happen at any time. And if he gets tossed, early foul trouble, whatever, that's just going to ruin your lineups, because this is going to be even less margin for error on a slate like this. Excuse me. Chaney Johnson, Denver Jones, both priced up. Still love Chaney Johnson. He's the play for me. When he comes in, he's just so active. The scoring hasn't really been there. He's been deferring, but he's getting it done as a shot blocker, grabbing steals. He's rebounding. Like, his peripherals right now are very strong. People forget Chaney Johnson. He can actually put the ball in the hoop. He is where was he from? Huntsville. When he played Auburn a couple of years ago, he can score with the best of them. And he's had a couple of games this year where he's put up 26, 20, 18. Like, he's had some pretty big scoring games when it's come down to it. So don't be so sure that Chaney isn't a solid play here. And if he does score even 8 to 9 real, we could be looking at a semi-slate breaking type of score at that low 5K range. So I think we continue to fire away on Chaney Johnson. Denver Jones played 35 minutes there. Another close game against the Spartans. I don't expect him to be sitting very long. He played 35 minutes against Creighton as well. And then even in the Alabama State game where they kind of pushed him early, he ended up over 30. So he's playing 35 minutes today. Priced up, yes, but if you look at that projection at 35, he's still over 4x. And I wouldn't be surprised if he pushes towards 30 fantasy points, honestly. I like his over. Most places have it at about 11.5 points. We have him right at 12, 12.5. I do think he scores closer to 15 because if this game's close and Auburn has it late, free throws are going to go to Denver Jones, Todd Pettiford. Those are going to be your closers. So that point total can rise very, very quickly. So Denver Jones and Chaney Johnson still very much in play. The Auburn stack, the 4-man Auburn stack was optimal last time, and it may be optimal again, meaning Denver Jones, Chaney Johnson, Todd Pettiford. You could maybe go down to Dylan Cardwell if you're pulling a hard fade of Janai Broome, but Cardwell, foul issues, we'll see. I think what we end up seeing here is Chad Baker and Denver Jones on a lot of people's lineups along with Janai Broome. So that'll be the chalkier 3-man Auburn build. I'm looking towards Pettiford, Chaney, Denver for sure. I'll make a decision on Janai Broome here. Probably will play him just because there's nobody else to pay for unless I want to go with a more semi-balanced approach. But I'm really fearful that Janai Broome is going to have a difficult time getting on the glass today. And then, of course, Cohen Carr is the semi-run back. But this is going to end up being one that you want 5 or 6 pieces of pretty easily. All right, so that takes care of the slate. Best bets wise, I do like Houston money line there. Michigan State plus 4.5. The total sitting at 147.5. I actually like the over on that one. This is one that strikes me as out of the 2 games here, the one most likely to hit overtime, I think could be Auburn. And I like rebounding props for several players here. Let's go over on Prize Picks. Fantasy score, we'll start with these. Jordan Gainey at 18.5 fantasy points. I like him over. We have him projected even against Houston, for 21-22. Milos Uzan over 23 fantasy points. Sticking with him, the one I like to hit of his is points plus assist. He's been very, very profitable in that category. It was 16.5 last time out. They've got it at 17.5. Still like that one quite a bit. And then let's see here, rebounding numbers. So I like Juwan Roberts over 6.5 rebounds. That one for sure. Janai Broome under 11 rebounds. I know. Don't be too mad at me. Cohen Carr over 4.5 rebounds. And then let's see what Miles Kelly's point total is currently. Been taking Kelly unders, under 11 points for Miles Kelly. No disrespect to Miles Kelly. He's just been playing the 4th or 5th option when on the floor. He had a pretty big game against Alabama State to the end of the year, but the last 2 competitive tournament games, he has not really played all that well. He's rebounded actually fairly well, but he's just not getting the shots up, deferring a lot more. And his defense has been solid enough to where he's out there, but he's just not looking for his shot whatsoever. Todd Pettiford, 12.5. It's 13.5 points on most sports books right now. Prize Picks still offering at 12.5. Would be no reason to stop firing at the over there. And also like Denver Jones over 12.5. Again, I think both of those guys are going to be taking free throw after free throw after free throw late. And that point total is going to just absolutely shrivel up and die. And they're going to be way above that. 15 each for both. I'm pretty confident there. And then we did slam the Cohen Carr over 7.5 points the other day when he was announced the starter. It's currently at 8. I still like that as well. When you look at the team view here, let's see, we have him at 10. So some cushion over the 10 or over 8 points and then over 4.5 rebounds. A 10-6 game, very simple. I think he hits that, and I think there's room for more. I think the way he's playing, he's very confident, and I'm loving these front court players who are able to put it on the deck and make some things happen there. Playmaking abilities. Cohen Carr definitely showed that last time out, and I think the game plan here is to just take it at Janai Broome because he's either going to get that foul or he's just going to jump out of the way. And there's going to be some easy buckets here to be had for the Spartans. Kurt says, just caught up. That stash got to stay. It's not bad, man. It's pretty, I like it a lot better than I thought. I think maybe I will. I never considered myself to be a mustache guy because a lot of people can't rock the mustache, right? But it's definitely I'm warming up to it. I got to fix. I did a trash job of shaving in the camera here, but yeah, I feel pretty good about the stash. Elo says Chaney Johnson, 11.5 points plus rebounds. Yeah, absolutely. And he hasn't even been scoring much, like 3 to 4 real points, but he's been getting after it on the glass. I would have felt better about it at like 9.5, 10.5, obviously. But, you know, what do you have? 9 against Michigan, 16 against Creighton, 20 against Alabama State. So yeah, he's hitting that number with the points plus rebounds. That's what I was rattling off there. Absolutely. And the Michigan game, like there wasn't as many rebound opportunities because Janai Broome was just not getting boxed out, but he still got 5. And if you look at his rebounding numbers over the last 5, 8, 7, 1, which was against the Vols, but he played like 14 minutes, and 7. So he's been really crushing that. And here, let me just pull up his individual name. The rebounding prop for him there on Prize Picks is only 4. So over 4 rebounds for him there as well, along with Cohen Carr. But yeah, that's a good call out on the points plus rebounds. That's just way too low. Chaney, much like Pettiford, we're going to see a lot of him in the second half. I just think that at this point, Pearl trusts those guys to be closers over Dylan Cardwell, who's been great defensively, and over Chad Baker-Mazara, who, you know, if he doesn't start out with a you know, hitting a couple of threes and really engaged in the first half, I think Pearl kind of knows like it's not going to be his game. We have to limit his opportunities so that he doesn't have a complete meltdown. And lately he's been off the floor in crunch time, and he's been okay with it. Like Baker's attitude has been solid, so keep that up. But yes, Chaney Johnson over 11.5 points plus rebounds. That's a great call out. When I get off of here, I'm going to put together a 5 pick on Prize Picks, and I really like that. And Cohen Carr over 13.5 points plus rebounds as well is another one. So some pretty advantageous numbers on Prize Picks, more so than Underdog. I've noticed Underdog has kicked off some of the better ones, like Milos Uzan's assist the other day they removed, and some of their fantasy point totals are a little bit wacky, but Prize Picks has been the more advantageous site to play on, at least per our projections here in the tournament. Johnny says you look younger, even with the mustache, huh? Yeah, it's here. Let's get here before we go. Let's do this. Da 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 da. Yeah, I guess you could say so. I could say so. Yeah. I gotta trim it up here, but man, can't believe my 3-year beard is gone. Thank you, Walter Clayton. Thank you, Walter Clayton. Please finish the deal now. I need Florida to win because you know, we have a pretty solid future there on Florida. All right, I think that'll take us to the end. Elite 8 finishing up to the Final 4. Don't worry, we do have a show coming up. It'll be probably later tonight, possibly in the morning, which is a full Crown tournament breakdown. DK has confirmed that they're going to have slates all throughout the Crown. The Monday should be 3 or 4 games, and then Tuesday is 5 to 6, plus the 2 NIT semifinals. So there's a chance that we have unless they posted it now, I don't think they did. We'll have a 7-gamer potentially on Tuesday. So that's a pretty big deal. Crown has props, betting opportunities. The big edge there is going to be news. Several players have already opted out. Some have hit the transfer portal but opted in. Big one already, if you're looking for some action, Georgetown money line against Washington State. Isaiah Watts has opted out and will not play. And then Nate Calmey's also hit the portal and is 50-50 he's going to play. So Georgetown has everyone pretty well bought in. They didn't seal the deal with Bryce Hopkins over the weekend, who visited, but they are expected to land a couple other high-profile transfers, and one maybe KJ Lewis from Arizona. And right now, Micah Peavy and everybody pretty much, except for Drew Fielder, are on board with this Crown tournament. So Georgetown is the bet there early. A lot of people are picking Utah to win this thing, but keep in mind Keanu Dallas just hit the transfer portal last night. And if he's not playing, I like Utah a lot less. So lots of stuff there. That show will be very in-depth. So if you're looking for a heavy edge, that'll be the one. On the way out the door, please hit the like button. You guys have been super supportive, and I always appreciate it so very much. And this community has just been fantastic. What we built here is over the years is really just makes me happy. Anthony says, what NITs you be on? So over on Will Hill, you'll have to double check if it's still available. The mocks, the Chattanooga mocks, are plus 450 to win the NIT. That is my pick. Everyone else is plus 270 or below. I think a lot will expect North Texas to seal the deal, but the way the mocks are playing and the way they came back on Bradley's floor kind of showed me they're taking this very seriously. The way they're playing is fantastic, and that's just amazing value. So plus 450 on the Chattanooga mocks to win the NIT. And then how's DePaul looking for next year? So they're going to have some guys. Holtman's actually a pretty good coach. I'm not going to get too in depth on this, but I will have shows throughout the summer on the portal. And I have a document that I'm working on that has every single team, outgoing players, ingoing players, projected roster, all of that. So that's going to be something that when it's ready, I'm going to make available. It's a very in-depth document. I'm very proud of it. And it's just basically tab after tab of conference after conference, and you'll be able to go to your team and see. There'll be rumor news, all that stuff. And then Tobias Bass from The Athletic, who I have a pretty good friendship with, is going to come on this summer, maybe sooner. We have already been talking, and kind of drop some knowledge on us. He breaks all the transfer news throughout the day. Very sharp individual. So I'm very excited about our off-season coverage that we have coming your way. Anthony, appreciate it. Thanks for asking. So that'll do it. Good luck. We lock in about 2 hours or so. Some really fun games on deck. Again, make sure you guys are retweeting, reposting, and liking that video. And if you're not subscribed to the FTN YouTube channel, please make sure you do so. I do this because I love you guys, and I would never back out of my word. Florida to the Natty, please, so that this wasn't for nothing. Thanks, guys. We'll see you next time, and go Huskies.